Hi everybody, welcome back to my craft room. We're doing it. We're getting started on Falin today. So the very first thing I'm going to make is the base for my padded leggings. If you want to see kind of where I am planning on heading with this cosplay, you can check out my how to plan a cosplay video. But here is the sketch just in case. As you can see, I got in the sketch a figure that I do not personally have. So we're gonna fake it today. I watched a bunch of drag queen tutorials, I looked at drag queen blogs, and I'm feeling pretty prepared. I think it's gonna be good. Before I even did anything, it's behind me, I have cut out 2 leg pieces for some leggings. These are just based off of leggings that I already had and I just made the pattern. It is not that exciting to watch me cut out fabric. That's literally the worst part of sewing. But the exciting part is going to be making the padding. I went to the purveyor of foam and other crafting things, the Joann's, and I got these 2 sheets of upholstery foam. So with the upholstery foam, we are gonna jump in and just start making a pattern. So the first thing we're gonna do is take some plastic wrap and make ourselves a very dainty plastic skirt. Oh, there's a sticker on it, no! Take my phone out of my pocket, that's gonna mess everything up. This should be the only piece I need to make a saran wrap pattern for. Everything else is pretty easy to just eyeball the shapes. I got the kind that has the cutter attached to it so it doesn't want to come out of the box, which was maybe a mistake. Oh, it came out of the box anyway, okay. Now that I have this very cute retro futuristic mini skirt, I am going to add tape to my hips, and I'm only going to do one side because this pattern is going to be symmetrical. I've brought you over to the mirror because I need to be able to see what I'm doing when I am drawing on my butt. If you can see, I had just enough tape left. Miracle, really. And now in the mirror, I'm just gonna take a Sharpie and draw out my new kind of hip and a thigh shape. But I will move the camera so you can actually see what I'm doing a little better. So what we're doing is we're drawing a U shape out on the thigh. Yes, that part. And then a round butt part. Yeah, perfect. So now I'll just cut this out. I freed myself from my plastic wrap prison and transferred it onto some pattern paper because I think it gives you a chance to refine the shape and it lays flatter than the tape pattern. I expanded mine a little bit because I can always cut more off. And then I marked the pattern with a B and a T for butt and thigh. Then I traced out my hip pad shapes onto the foam and also drew out some other shapes I'll be using to pad out my legs. Beep boop. All right. So here is my foam that I have cut out. I've mirrored the pattern onto my other piece of foam. There we go. And now it's time to start cutting it. I know you can do this with scissors, but that will take a long time. And everybody I saw, specifically BooTube, made a tutorial for this a couple years ago, recommended electric knife. I did not want to buy one of these, and luckily my mom had one and she said she hates this one, so I don't feel bad that I'm cutting foam out with it. So let's get going. That is not a pleasant sound to hear through a microphone, so I will just do the rest of this as a voiceover. Couple of things about the knife. First of all, if you're going to do this, be extra aware of where your hands and fingers are at all times and be so careful. You don't want to end up with a missing finger in the emergency room because you were trying to give yourself a dump truck for your cosplay. Embarrassing. Second, and this is probably this specific knife, it kind of helped, but I can see why my mom said she hated this one. It worked on long, straight parts the best, but any sort of curves or detail work, no way. So I did end up using some scissors after all. Since the hip pads were the largest, they took the most time. I used the electric knife to bevel the edges as best as I could, and then I just hacked at it with the scissors, doing my best to make all of the pieces match for each side. I would say it's going really well. Here's half of a hip pad. This is one of the biggest messes I have ever made in my craft room. Raffia is still maybe first place. This is a close second, and it's staticky, so it just wants to stick. I found it in my hair this morning when I woke up after crafting last night, so be warned about the foam.
Here's a little before and after of all the pieces. I ended up taking a lot of foam off. You don't need it to be super thick to make a really big difference in your shape.
All right, here are all my foam pieces, and I realize I never really explained where all of these are gonna go. So these big kind of, I think they look like the secret stones from Tears of the Kingdom, but this is going on the hip and the butt. These pieces are going to go just above my knees, just to kind of beef out the quads. And then these small circular pieces are going to be going right at the top of my calf muscle. Again, for extra beef. And here are the hip pads on. It looks absolutely bananas. I do have this shapewear with a padded butt that I got for a previous cosplay. And the butt looks like not great right now and pretty lumpy, but this looks ridiculous now. But when I put this on, it kind of fixes the shape of the butt and kind of compresses in the hips a little bit more so they aren't as insane. But yeah, I think beefing out the legs here and especially down at the calf, I think that really helps lend itself to that kind of like dragon shape I'm going for. I've also chosen some shoes with a pretty dramatic wedge, so I think those will also look very cool, dragoned. As you can see, this is looking insanely lumpy right now, but for my next steps, I think I'm gonna be able to fix that. If you'll recall from the intro, I cut out 2 pieces for leggings, so I'll just sew those together now and show you how I'm gonna attach all of these pads to the leggings.
I always appreciate sewing leggings for a cosplay because it's just 3 seams. It's super easy. Now I'm going to be making essentially pockets for my padding to go into. I just laid out my foam pieces and cut around them with a little bit of seam allowance and sewed them up, leaving an opening to get the foam in and out of. I want to make the padding on the leggings removable so I can easily wash the leggings without having to worry about the foam inside getting all weird. And I can take the foam out and use it as padding for when I pack this cosplay to take to a convention. Luckily, foam is very squishy, so even with a weird shape like the hip pad, I can pretty easily get it into the small hole I left at the top of the pocket. And you'll recognize this move if you watched my Melanoy video, but I put my leggings on and I'm using a curved sewing needle to hand sew the pocket into position on the leggings. This would have been probably a lot easier and faster if I had taken the time to figure out where on the legging pattern pieces the pockets were going to go and just sewed them on that way. So I would recommend doing that, but I'm kind of just making these on a vibes-based system because it's not like you can get a dragon leg shapewear pattern at Joann's. The hip pads were trickier to place than the thigh and calf pieces. I ended up safety pinning them on and then drawing around them with some tailor's chalk, just so I could keep track of where they go. I remembered that I have a mannequin, so I put the leggings on it and stitched around the pockets. Also, I left the foam in for all of these and was just careful to not sew through it.
Can you see my legs? No. All right, now you can see my legs. Only my legs. I'm on my tiptoes so you can see all of me. Here we go. We got some hips. Very squishy, very fun. I think the whole removable padding situation is going to be extremely helpful. It looks a lot less lumpy underneath a layer of spandex, and I'm hoping underneath my actual fabric, it will be even less so. So let's talk about the fabric. Here is the fabric. A little bit closer so you can see. Super shiny, nice and stretchy, really great scale pattern. I got 3 yards, which was probably definitely overkill, but I wanted to make sure I had plenty for the leggings and also for the tail. So we'll move over to the sewing table and get cracking on these. So, fabric. It is a stretch. It's 4-way stretch, but it's stretchier this way than it is this way. So I want to make sure that I'm laying my pattern not only to have it going across my leg as the stretchiest part, but also we have a little velvet pile going on because this is a stretch velvet. So that means I need to lay my pattern this way and then top this way. Okay. The thing about sewing is that there is a lot of stuff to think about. So we're gonna lay this out nice and folded. And then to make sure I'm getting a pattern for both sides of my legs, I'm just gonna fold this in half so that when I lay my pattern piece over it and I cut them out, I have two mirrored patterns. So here we have the pattern piece laid down, and just double checking, make sure the velvet pile is going the right direction. So when I move my hand over it, smooth. This way, not smooth. That is very important to remember when you are sewing anything with velvet. And this isn't just velvet, it's stretch velvet, so bonus points for being tricky. I've mentioned it before, I actually really enjoy sewing with stretch fabric because it's very forgiving on the fit. If it doesn't fit perfectly, that's okay. It will kind of stretch to accommodate your mistakes. Got some washers. I'm just laying down some heavy things that are in my sight line to, I don't know, make the, to weigh this pattern down. Now something I'm going to do, because if you'll recall, I made my butt bigger, I am going to add a little bit of extra fabric to in fact, you know what I should do? We are just gonna do a little kind of hacky slash and spread. Let's see, because all that extra girth is right here at the hip. And where is the pattern hip? Right here. So, what we're gonna do is take this, cut it. This is, again, kind of made up. But, like I said, it's stretch fabric. Your body is a tube, and you can make anything fit a tube. So we're taking this. I'm not really worried about ruining this pattern because I have it copied elsewhere. So it's fine. So we're kind of just spreading this to give a little more room in the hips. I think that should be fine. And again, this is leggings, this is stretch fabric, and I'm confident enough in my sewing skills that I think I can cut this and it will be fine. But this is great because I don't really need any extra room. Because if I were to add some seam allowance in this leg seam right here, that would give me more room on the inner leg, which is not where I need it. I need it on the outer leg. And I don't necessarily want to have a 4-panel legging because then I'll have a seam running down the side. Not that that would look like bad, but not the look I'm going for. Ooh, this foil a little bit murderous on my scissors. And there we go. Time to sew it up.
I used my serger to sew up the legs of my leggings first, and then I flipped one of the legs right side out and stuck it inside the other one right sides together so I could sew up the 2 legs at the crotch seam.
Once again, I have to stand a comic distance away from the camera to get leggings. I added myself a little waistband. Don't worry that it's black, that's gonna be covered. And I also had to adjust the front crotch seam a little bit. It was slightly too baggy, but the padding worked. It worked out great, actually. The snake skin is really, really pretty. Thrilled. But yeah, super comfortable, warm, because there's padding, but something I will be able to walk around in a convention all day easily. I feel like I need to just push through and finish off the leg part, so I am gonna be making some shoe covers next.
The base of my shoe covers was super simple. I just laid the shoe down and traced around it to create my pattern and added a little extra seam allowance on the back to accommodate my zipper. Again, I was super careful to make sure my velvet stretch pile was going in the right direction, and I marked my pattern where I wanted the bottom of my zipper to go and got a red invisible zipper. I used some long stitches with a contrasting thread color to baste in the zipper and then sewed it on my machine, as well as sewing up the front seam with a zigzag stitch. I used some clear swimming suit elastic along the bottom of the shoe covers to keep them tight around the base of the shoes, and I just stretched the elastic while I sewed it on with a zigzag. Next, I cut off my excess zipper tape and used these teeny little zipper stops and squeezed them onto the zipper with some pliers. And that's the base of the shoe covers done.
It's cold in here. All right, so the base shoe covers are finished. I'm pretty happy with them, I would say. And now it's time to add the dragon claws, and I have already done a test. I have a ton of Warbler scraps that I have just accumulated over the years. And the nice thing about Warbler is you can just reheat it, reshape it, remold it into whatever you want. So I think for my little chicken feet, my claws, and I know I am going to be using Warbler to craft these little claws to go on the shoes. So here is my little tester. I figure this can be a back claw on the shoe, and I'm going to be using one on the back, and then I think just 3 kind of coming off the front of the shoe. So pretty simple. I am just taking these little Warbler scraps, heating them up with the old heat gun, and then kind of just sculpting it with my fingers. If you're gonna do this, be so careful. It's hot. Warbler is a neat material. I think I bought the sheet that this particular piece of Warbler came from probably in 2015. I have had these scraps for a long time. I even have this piece that is like a little Sailor Scout crown, probably from when I did Sailor Miku forever ago. So that's really fun that it's gonna get recycled back into Falin. So yeah, I guess just we'll just be sculpting some talons.
I can't remember why I rolled up my Warbler into these little snakes, but it was pretty convenient since I just heated up a section and could tear it off to start forming the knuckle segments of my talons. A long-nosed pair of tweezers is helpful if you need to hold a chunk of Warbler and also value your fingers. I made my talons out of 3 knuckle sections and added on a long, pointy claw. I laid a flat piece over the connection point of the claw and knuckle to make it look like the cuticle? I don't know, do lizards have cuticles? I made it look like there was skin the claw was growing out from under. I also used some sculpting tools to add some texture and shape.
I have all of my little croissants, my croissants, if you will. They look really good. I do not think regular glue is gonna cut it for these, so I'm going to use something that I got from Cow Butt Crunchies, which I'm going to take a piece of Warbler. I'm gonna cut it into a little coin shape, like so. And then I'm gonna take what has come to be known as just my junk needle. This I used when I was making Aloy, and it has hot glue and garbage all over it. It's beyond saving. So I just use it for like Warbler now. Taking my heat gun, getting that nice and melty. Now we're gonna take the hot, oh my gosh, junk needle and just start stabbing holes in this piece of Warbler. I think I maybe got it too hot, but these are holes that we are going to use to stitch the little chunk of Warbler onto the shoe because, well, I don't trust glue to hold the claws onto the shoe. I do trust smashing the Warbler together because it's pretty permanent. Needle stuck, there we go. And honestly, I'm just gonna stab a bunch of holes in it because the more connection points with thread I can make, probably the better. Stab. It's no longer flat, but that is something the heat gun can very easily fix. Yeah, that's about the right size. And now I just make little coins for all of them.
Since the Warbler gets sticky when you heat it up, it was easy to just smash it onto the fabric and have it hold temporarily before I sewed it down. Then I just took a needle and thread and stitched all around the edges and through the middle so it would hold super well. I cut out another small piece of Warbler and heated it up and pressed it onto my stitched down pieces to encase the thread in Warbler. Then I heated up the claw and stuck it onto the still warm piece of Warbler. I did this with my foot in the shoe so I could get it positioned on my toes, and here's a behind the scenes of what that looked like so I could get a shot of it. And here's the little claws attached to the shoe covers. Next it was time for priming them, and I just painted on 2 coats of Flex Bond. I'm painting the claws on the shoes because I didn't want to paint them and then have the painted surface get in the way of the Warbler sticking, or have the paint get ruined because I heated up the Warbler to stick it together. I used some red acrylic paint on the knuckles and then black on the talon, and then used brown oil paint in the low spots to give it some dimension, and that's the finished lower half of this cosplay.
And here we are. The full shoes and hip pads part of the cosplay. I'm quite happy with it so far. I really like the seamless look of the shoes and the leggings. I popped on a little corset so you could kind of get the shape that I'm eventually going to have, which is crazy. I don't need to be standing for the outro, but it's unfortunate. You can't see my legs when I'm not standing up. This has been part 1 of my Chimera Falin build, and I really had fun. I hope you did too. If you want to see the rest of this build, make sure you subscribe to my channel, and if you want to see what I'm working on right now, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. Both are One Emily's. Next time, I'm going to be working on making a mesh corset and the harness for my wing structure, so stay tuned for that. And I will see you next time. Bye!